High in the thin air of the Andes, where clouds drift like ghosts and the earth folds into impossible mountains, a road runs across the sky. It winds through snow and jungle, over deserts and valleys, clinging to cliffs where even the condor hesitates to fly. This is no ordinary road. It is the work of an empire that never knew the wheel, never forged iron, and yet connected a civilization larger than Rome. These are the Inca roads, the Chapacuan, or the Great Road. They are among the most astonishing engineering achievements in human history, a network of stone and spirit that bound together an empire stretched across the spine of South America. It's a road that has endured earthquakes, time, and conquest, a road that still whispers, if you listen closely, of the genius and ambition of a people who built bridges between worlds. Imagine standing at dawn upon one of these ancient paths. The sun bleeds over the peaks, lighting the frost on the stones, and before you lies a trail that disappears into eternity. It leads through every climate the continent can offer, from the coastal deserts of Peru to the ice-capped summits of Bolivia, from cloud forests to grasslands. More than 40,000 kilometers of roadway, carved, paved, and suspended by hand, linking mountains to the ocean, temple to fortress, city to city. To travel, it was to walk the lifeline of the Inca Empire, the arteries through which flowed its messengers, its armies, its emperors, its gods. The story of these roads begins not with machines, but with minds that saw in the chaos of the Andes not barriers, but possibilities. The Incas inherited a landscape of extremes, mountains that cracked the sky, rivers that tore through valleys, deserts that shimmered with death. And yet, where others saw isolation, they saw connection. They called the realm Tawantinsuyu the land of the four quarters, and from their capital at Cusco, the navel of the world, they reached outward in all directions. To hold an empire of such vastness demanded more than soldiers or faith. It demanded movement, precision, and mastery over nature itself. So they built a road network that defied nature's logic, a system so advanced it rivaled anything Europe or Asia had achieved. With no draft animals for transport, no carts, and no written maps, the Incas relied on human ingenuity alone. Every stone was placed by hand, every bridge woven from grass, every path aligned with the heavens. Where the land offered no mercy, they carved their own. On mountainsides, they cut terraces into sheer cliffs, laying foundations that would not crumble even beneath the trembling of the earth. In deserts, they raised walls of stone to hold back drifting sands. Across roaring rivers, they spun bridges from woven ichu grass, creating living structures that swayed like breathing things. These were renewed every year by villages and ceremonies that bound engineering with faith. The roads were not merely conduits of travel, they were sacred. To the Inca, every step was a prayer, every summit a place of offering. Along the route stood tambos, way stations where travelers could rest, eat, and store goods, an empire's heartbeat pulsing with movement. Messengers known as chasqui sprinted along these roads. They were relay runners, trained from youth to cover incredible distances, carrying messages in the form of knotted cords called quipus, the meaning known only to the trained. Day and night they ran, barefoot over stone, bridging hundreds of miles in a matter of days. They ensured that news from the distant corners of the empire could reach the Sapa Inca in Cusco before the sun had crossed Esqui twice. In this way, the roads were not just a marvel of engineering, they were a system of communication, a nervous system for a living empire. But the genius of the Inca engineers went beyond endurance. They built with an understanding of the land that bordered on symbiosis. Unlike the straight Roman roads that cut through the landscape, the Inca roads flowed with it. They followed contours, curved around sacred sites, and blended into their surroundings, respecting both earth and spirit. They built retaining walls where the mountain threatened to crumble, drainage channels to divert rain, and steps carved into cliffs so steep they seemed vertical to the eye. Some paths were only a meter wide, threading through high passes where clouds swallowed the horizon. Others were grand highways 20 meters across, paved in cobblestone and bordered by low walls to guide travelers through the fog. Each region offered its own challenges, and the Incas adapted to all. In the coastal deserts, where heat cracked the earth, they laid foundations of sand and gravel to prevent erosion. In the high Andes, Where frost could split rock, they used porous stone that expanded with the cold. The roads endured earthquakes that toppled colonial cities centuries later, proof that their builders knew not just stone, but the pulse of the living earth. The Chappaqua was more than a feat of construction. It was the skeleton of an empire. Along its roots moved armies that could appear seemingly from nowhere, disciplined, silent, unstoppable. Supplies were stored in kolkas, stone granaries built into the hills, ensuring that a campaign never ran dry. Trade flourished, though the Incas had no currency. Goods and labor were exchanged through the principle of mita, communal service to the state. From the roads, control flowed outward, food, gold, and tribute to Cusco, power, protection, and order back to the people. It was the infrastructure of empire at its most refined, efficient, elegant, and invisible to those who did not understand its harmony. And yet, for all its grandeur, the road was also deeply human. It was built by thousands of farmers, masons, laborers who carried stones on their backs, guided by architects who saw geometry where others saw wilderness. They used nothing more than copper and stone tools, and yet created gradients so precise that water still flows along their channels 5 centuries later. The sound of their labor once echoed through the valleys, the scrape of stone on stone, the chant of work songs rising against the wind. To walk these roads today is to feel their ghosts beneath your feet, to sense the persistence of a people who believed that nothing was impossible when done together. The Spanish conquistadors, when they arrived in the 16th century, were awed and bewildered. They had crossed oceans and deserts, fought kingdoms and storms, but they had never seen roads like these. Roads that ran straight up mountainsides, that vanished into the clouds and reappeared miles above. They marched along them, using them to conquer the very empire that built them. Yet even as they seized the land, they never fully understood the genius beneath their feet. Many of the roads fell into silence after the conquest. Their tambos crumbled, their bridges unkept. But the stones endured. Centuries later, explorers and archaeologists would retrace these paths, astonished to find them still firm, still guiding them across the same impossible landscapes. In 2014, UNESCO declared the Chappaqua a World Heritage Site, a recognition not only of its scope, but of its soul. For these roads were never just paths through the land, they were paths through time, through memory. They connected more than cities, they connected people to each other, and to the gods they believed dwelled in the mountains and rivers. Every curve of the road was shaped by reverence. Even now, in remote Andean villages, the descendants of the Inca still walk these trails, their sandals made of woven fiber, their breath-forming clouds in the thin air. They follow the same footsteps as their ancestors, carrying goods to market, visiting shrines, or tending herds in pastures that have known human hands for 1,000 years. The road is alive, and the past still walks upon it. The true wonder of the Inca roads lies not only in their endurance, but in what they reveal about the people who built them. The Incas did not dominate their world by breaking it. They mastered it by listening to it. The roads flowed with the contours of the mountains, mirrored the stars above, and echoed the principle that harmony was stronger than force. It was an engineering born not from conquest, but from communion, from a belief that the earth itself was sacred, and to build upon it was to enter into a partnership with the divine. In every bridge that swings over a canyon, in every stone perfectly fitted without mortar, there is a whisper of that philosophy, balance, precision, respect. The modern world, with its asphalt highways and roaring machines, may span greater distances, but rarely with such grace. The Chappaqua endures because it was not imposed upon the land, it was woven into it. In the silence of the Andes, the wind still traces those ancient paths, carrying the faint rhythm of footsteps long vanished. If you follow the road long enough, you begin to feel the pulse of empire beneath your feet, the heartbeat of a civilization that once ruled not by destruction, but by design. The stones are smooth from centuries of passage, the air thin and sharp, the horizon infinite. And as the sun sets behind the jagged peaks, painting the mountains in fire and shadow, you realize that the Inca roads were never meant merely to move people. They were built to connect heaven and earth, to turn the act of walking into a prayer, the act of building into a legacy. For long after the empire fell, the roads remain, patient and eternal, reminding us that greatness does not always roar like conquest. Sometimes it whispers like the wind along the high-pathed echo of footsteps upon the roof of the world, the voice of the lost Inca engineers who dared to link the impossible. Thank you for watching. If you were as amazed by this story as we were, please like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the wonders of human history. See you next time.